The Power Armour of the Space Marines is quite possibly the most iconic silhouette in all of 40k, and is one of the main things that separates them from their more human counterparts. While some armies do utilise human-sized suits of power armour, such as the Adeptus Sororitas or the Inquisition, they are dwarfed by the suits employed by the Adeptus Astartes. Since before Space Marines were stomping around in the Emperor's name, those techno-barbarians on Terra fought and died in the first generation of the suit. Like with the First World War, Mark I Power Armour was at the time just referred to as Power Armour, but in the times of the 40k universe, it is either referred to as Mark I or Thunder Armour. This name gives homage to those who first fought in these suits in the name of the Emperor, his Thunder Warriors. As the wars to unify Terra progressed, the Emperor developed the Space Marines, who in turn went on to wear these suits. Unlike the power armour of modern day, these suits were only designed for the brutal close quarters combat of Earth. They were loud and clunky things, designed to give the user enhanced upper body strength with which to pound their enemies into the ground. It lacked environmental seals, and for the most part was only powered from the waist up. With guns being scarce at this time, most fights were fought up close and personal, with warriors on both sides relying on their power armour to give them an edge in the slugging matches that broke out all across Old Terra. When it came time for the Emperor to take his Space Marines and push out into the stars, it was time for their armour to get a significant upgrade. With the aid of the Cult Mechanicum, this Mark II Crusade armour was fully enclosed, making it much more suitable for the conquest of space. With life support systems, air scrubbers, and a very tasteful fluid recycling system, these suits were designed to last, and ensured that their occupants did also. They were also the first suits to utilise auto-sensors, a feature present throughout all other generations of armour. These electronic sensory devices monitored the surrounding battlescape and fed visual and auditory information directly into the Marine's cerebral cortex. Not only did this enhance the Marine's already heightened senses, it also made them particularly hard to blind or deafen. As the Great Crusade progressed through the galaxy, there became frequent times where the Marines faced minimal cover and a frontal assault. To better handle the close-quarter fights and boarding actions, suits of power armour with additional padding and reinforced ceramite were rolled out, offering Marines better front armour at the cost of their rear protection. Whilst these Mark III iron pattern suits were popular, they didn't completely replace the Mark II suits, serving as more of a specialist tool to be used, rather than a full-on replacement. The pattern of armour that was to replace the Crusade armour was the Mark IV Maximus pattern power armour. Bringing together the knowledge gained throughout the Great Crusade, the Mechanicum was able to design a suit that was easier to create and maintain, along with being lighter whilst increasing the level of protection that the suit offered. It was also the first suit of power armour where the helmet was not set in a fixed position. Rather than the Marine's head moving inside the helmet, Mark IV helmets moved with the user's head, giving better visibility as well as, in my opinion, a much cooler look. At the time of production, it was thought that the Mark IV pattern would be the final suit design, and it was spread out amongst the legions just before the time of the Heresy. Many of the legions tinkered with the design, and legion-specific variations of the Maximus armour began to appear, such as the Mark IV Achaean pattern armour that the Thousand Sons forged on their home world of Prospero. Of course, as we all know, the Crusade hit a bit of a speed bump called the Horus Heresy, and this is where things get a bit weird. When the Heresy broke out, the rollout of Mark IV armour wasn't complete. Some legions were still partially operating on Mark II or Mark III suits, or they just simply lacked replacement parts for damaged suits of Mark IV. As such, when the Marines began to turn on one another, there became a need to adapt. In a bit of a step backwards, Mark V Power Armour was created. A Frankenstein of power armour. Each suit was a mix of parts, as well as some hastily designed cross-compatible plates, all bolted together. It worked, was easy enough to maintain and repair, and allowed the forces of both sides to continue the fighting without having to resort to running into battle armourless. Over time, these suits became somewhat uniform, with so many parts replaced and adapted into these Mark V templates. It was basically a fully formed suit design in its own right. Taking us back in the direction of progress, the Mechanicum developed a new suit of power armour, designed with the knowledge that it would need to be easily repaired and maintained across countless marine-on-marine battles. The Mark VI Corvus power armour was built with dual technology circuits, allowing it to function with advanced and sophisticated parts, just the same as cheap and cheerful mass-produced bits. Lightweight and mobile, this suit was considered the smoothest in its movements, becoming a quick favourite of assault marines and other jump pack fanatics. Named after the Raven Guard's Primarch, and offered to the 19th Legion first as recognition for their sacrifice during the drop site massacre, and for their aid in the development of the armour, the Corvus pattern armour became a mainstay in the latter parts of the Heresy. Sometimes dubbed as beaky armour, it was this pattern that we first saw Marines modelled with in the 1980s. The original Marines rocking this classic suit pattern exclusively for a while, before later models were produced with different armour styles. It's also this suit of armour that gave the Orcs their nicknames for the Space Marines, referring to the forces of the Adeptus Astartes as Beakies, just as they refer to the Chaos Marines as Spiky Lads. Up until the Horus Heresy, it was the sole honour of the Emperor's Children's Legionnaires to bear the Aquila into battle, the symbol of the Emperor being a reward to the chapter. After the Heresy, however, especially seeing as how Fulgrim and his lot turned traitor, this honour was rescinded. I like to imagine that the development of Mark VII armour was less about the need to create a new standard improved armour type for the newly established Space Marine chapters, and that instead it was just a massive middle finger to the Emperor's children. The Aquila pattern armour boasted a massive Aquila emblazoned across its chest, the symbol of the Emperor now worn by every Marine who still shows him allegiance. A general improvement taking the best of Mark IV and Mark VI pattern suits, the rollout of the armour was a sign that the Heresy was over, and gave the Marines who still stood a fresh page to begin to write a new future for humanity. For almost 10,000 years, this Mark VII power armour was the bread and butter of the Imperium. The age of invention and development has come and passed, the Adeptus Mechanicus holding that everything was just fine as it was, thank you very much. Eventually, however, a slightly improved version of the Mark VII was conceived, the Mark VIII errant armour. With a raised gorget, enhanced armour plating for cabling, and some better articulation in the leg joints, the suit was an upgrade. Just not the sort you might expect 10,000 years in the making. A rare pattern due to its recent introduction, its components are only really seen on chapter veterans, and a full suit of errant armour is rarer still. It was set to be more widely dispersed throughout the chapters, but thanks to the arrival of Khal and the Primaris Marines, it's likely the Mark VIII suits will be retired before they could really see any service. Like all great tech guys understand, Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, Belisarius Khal, you skip right over version 9. So, introducing the Power Armour Mark X, the chosen plate of the Primaris Marine. Now this is the sort of upgrade that 10,000 years of development should produce. The best of the past variances all rolled into one and turned up to 11, these suits are designed to be modular. Each Marine wears an undersuit, onto which is attached various Mark X parts to fit their battlefield need. Whether that's adding a jump pack, heavier or lighter armour plates, or suppressed servo motors, each Marine suit can be tailored and adapted to their assigned role. really taking a leaf out of the days of mismatched Heresy armour. Core's design is not only adaptable, but in principle future-proof. As the requirements of the Marines change over time, new components can be developed, rather than the need to create an entirely new suit of power armour. Now, I know I've already said it a couple of times about other patterns of power armour, but for reals this time, the Mark X power armour is really designed to be the final variant. Of course, we'll see how well that statement ages. That brings us up to modern day 40k though, with power armour variants 1 through to 10 covered. But beyond the tactical power armour variants we've spoken about here today, there's also multiple versions of tactical dreadnought armour, also known as Terminator plate, as well as more specialist gear such as Centurion war suits. If you want to hear about these suits and their history, let me know in the comments below, as well as any other ideas you might have for what we should cover next. As always, if you've enjoyed the video, then drop us a like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us to continue what we're doing. Thanks, and I'll see you next time.